We're finishing up the first night of the New York High School Football Coaches Association clinic, and sitting down with me is the offensive coordinator at Utica, Joe Gerbino. Joe, it's great to have you here. Thank you for taking the time.
Thanks for having me, Coach, and for pronouncing the correct way as well.
Absolutely. Grabowski has always been a tough one for me. Sometimes I can't even pronounce it.
Yeah, I had to enunciate that one a couple times myself.
You are a Utica guy. Went to Utica, started your coaching career there 4 years in, 24 years old, becoming offensive coordinator. So Utica has been obviously near and dear to you. But in the whole scheme of things, what led you to being a football coach?
Our head coach is somewhere smiling hearing you say Utica guy, and that's kind of picking up some traction. What led me to being a football coach? So my senior year, I was a captain at Utica. I got hurt. I sustained a back injury, needed surgery, got a medical red shirt. I came back for a second senior year or fifth year. This was in 2014. It was our best season in program history. And like I was kind of joking with you before, I didn't know what GAs were. I thought my GA was the best football coach I ever had, Riley Hill and Seth Williams. And I thought they all made a lot of money and lived in big houses, and they were all full-time. And it timed up well to where I came back for my fifth year. Those guys got their degrees, graduated, went on to bigger and better things. And I actually went home and got a business job back home where I'm from in New Jersey. I had a business management degree. And Coach Fagiano called me up one day and asked me if I wanted to be one of them funny GA things. Told him that, name the time and the place, and I'm there. So it kind of called me. I never thought that I would be a football coach, and I'm very fortunate. I have a lot of friends that want to get into it, and I think it's a hard business to crack and stay in and be successful in. And I'm very fortunate somebody took a shot on me and believed in me and let me be a GA and full-time coach and all of that.
You mentioned a couple guys there and influences, but thinking about things you learned from them and looking back on some of those lessons, what things did you learn or pick up, or the takeaways you had that really are part of who you are now as a coach?
Yeah, you know what? That's always a nice little exercise to look back and reflect. Riley Hill was a technician. I thought that we would sit in the meeting room and he would get us better at receiver-specific play. His indies were very well detailed and organized. Seth took a great interest in his players and really made them feel like they were his sons and part of his family. My offensive coordinators, Coach Fitzpatrick, head coach over at Cortland now, was at Morrisville, was OC at Utica with me. I had the great pleasure of playing for him. Schematics was as good as I've ever seen. And then Jim Kramer, who's still a great mentor to me, was my OC after Fitz when I GA'd, helped me become a GA and helped me become an offensive coordinator. Just being a mentor, like being a father figure type of guy, and being there to pick you up when you needed it and be there to humble you when you needed it too. So a little bit of everything.
Yeah. In looking at your offense, first of all, what's your philosophy behind that? What is it that you're really going to build as a foundation?
Yeah, it's funny because I just got to talk tonight and I was talking a little bit about it. So I think it's an our system type of thing and not a my system. So I think the more that our staff can learn and we can implement to match our personnel, the better. And I think this year, better than any other year, we had really good players, and that certainly helps. But we were able to find ways to play more than just our guys. We were able to develop more. We had 100 starters, we would say. And we were able to package our guys and play 13 personnel football and play 0 personnel and put our best slot in the backfield, or play 3 QBs on the field at once. And we call that our Ivy League package. And every school that we named, the first letter of it actually, like Stanford was for Sam Florio, Brown was for Brendan Belot. Princeton was just personnel with our base QB and all those guys out there. So little things like that, having a way to find fun. And if you're not having fun coaching, they're not having fun playing for you. So, finding a way to get them involved and feel like they're a part of it.
Yeah, at the Division III level, we get those bigger rosters, and you work hard to bring those kids in too.
Yep.
Right? And I think when you can find that mix of guys who, make your depth chart horizontal, like you're talking about, rather than vertical, the buy-in's so much better. It's something we put a focus on, the same thing. How can we get more guys involved, playing multiple quarterbacks? It would drive people crazy and they wouldn't understand it. Like, you guys went from a 12 personnel to a 12 personnel. But we had different guys on the field, right? So talk to us a little bit about just one, how do you make that work? Because it's not always the easiest thing to see like, okay, I'm going to take this guy who I think is really good off the field, and this other guy is going to come in.
Yeah, so I think when your best players are your best leaders, you're onto something. So I thought our 2 overall best football players, although they're hard to thumb sometimes, they were both our captains as well. So even when we schemed things up for them to get the ball, nobody was feeling a certain type of way because of how good of people and leaders they were. And because they saw those guys, nobody was safe from coming off of the field. So they saw those guys come off the field and how they reacted to it. And that made them comfortable with coming on and off themselves. To be a captain is a great honor, and I think for those guys to be captains, they knew that they had to represent themselves a certain way. But we always say that like our players are an extension of the staff, so they have a part in the practice planning. They have a part in everything that we do as a program. And we started meeting as a full unit this year. So the more guys that we could teach the entire offense to and teach it conceptually, not just position-based wise, and create a universal language, the easier it was to plug and play and kind of get the guys in different spots. And when they know you care about them as people, they're willing to do whatever it takes for you and for the program and whatever else.
Definitely. Now I know this year your slot is a dynamic player.
Yep.
Sometimes those guys fall into doing the same things over and over again. But I think when you can find some special ones and really highlight all the different things they can do and not just get set on throwing them bubbles or vert routes or whatever, like they can make a difference in not just being the most dynamic guy, but just helping scheme out, getting other people open too.
Yep. Yeah, well said. And like that was part of the clinic talk that we had. And I think what made Nate great was I'm going to miss Nate next year because he was a phenomenal football player. I'm going to tease him and say that his little brother's on the team. He's a freshman, and he might be a little bit better than Nate, and we tease him constantly about that. But I think what made Nate great and why we're going to miss him, not just how good of a football player he was, but the relationship that we built, him and I, and then our staff and him and the program and him over the years, how he held his teammates accountable, how he did the extra stuff. He was the type of kid staying after practice to pick up the water bottles, and we'd share dinners together. I know what his mother does and what makes her work and tick and what kind of family he comes from, and that's really why we're in this thing, is for those relationships like that. And when you have a relationship with a kid like that, then he's willing to spend extra time with you, then he's getting better, because I think our jobs as coaches is to take them where they can't take themselves. So the more time he spends with us, theoretically the better he should be. And you get a kid like that for 3, 4, 5 years in your program and put him in positions to be successful and build his confidence, the sky's the limit.
When you look at that position and being able to use it in different ways beyond what everybody usually does, how much more difficulty does that give the defense? It's easy when okay, we got to stop this guy who's running the bubble, or this guy's going to run the shallow route. But you start putting him all over the place, not just where he aligns, but also like where he's going to go to.
Yep.
It certainly changes things. How do you, one, that's not always easy to do, because you can, you get maybe too many ideas.
Right. That's definitely
and then
a thing.
Confusion. So finding the balance with that, I guess, and being able to highlight what he does, but also I think when you can highlight a player like that, it does draw attention to him, and now other guys will benefit from that as well.
Yep.
So how do you go about, I guess, putting together those game plans, those thoughts, so it fits too, right? You talked about having the whole team concept. Well, you can't be in there scheming all week either.
No doubt. We gave Nate a lot of conversion routes, and I think that's a testament to him, his preparation. He was able to handle things like that. So mantra in our room is, if you're not open, get open. If you are open, stay open. And giving them parameters so that they could make us right, because us as coaches, we're no longer playing. So we think we know everything, but it looks pretty on the board and it looks different on the field sometimes. So giving them and empowering them with the confidence and the ability and the information they need to make you right and adjust to the defense is important. So conversion routes first and foremost, and then humbling ourselves and saying it's not my system, it's our system. So, only kids that can do this can play in my system, or only kids that look like this can play in my system. A kid like Nate, in the past, we may have only put him on the hash and in the slot, but this year we would go big so we could put him on the perimeter and put him on the numbers. Or when teams started double teaming him, we would put him in the backfield. And I think having an appropriate and proper way to echo and communicate your substitutions, and I think that we increase our staff, it gets bigger because of how we treat our players. It's like we have 8 QBs in our program, and all 8 of them have some type of responsibility in practice and on game day. And whether it's a personnel card or like you talked about, 12 personnel is not the same 12 personnel every time, depending on who's on the field in there. And we had kind of our subcategories within our personnels this year as well. But having the universal language to get that done, having the manpower and the hands and the eyes to help you communicate that throughout the program, and empowering the kids with the information they need to make you right, and building in the conversions and things.
I think one of the challenges when you do play a lot of players like that and you're trying to make the roles for them is to make sure that they're still competing, that they understand, you're this role. And I think you said we had 100 starters. We used to do that too. I drive the head coach crazy because we had a tradition on Fridays, in the stadium after practice, we would announce the starters, and the guy who was announcing it the one day, I turned in like 22 guys.
Did you? I gotta try that. I haven't done that one yet.
But they took it to heart, and the kids, I'd tell them, like, look, you are a starter. How much your group plays is really up to you guys. You guys take ownership of it. So what's been your approach? How have you handled that to make sure that, I guess, people don't feel like, well, I'm owed this now because this is my spot, right?
Yeah. Well, I think I got to try the 22 starters thing with the announcer first and foremost. I got to put that one in the tool belt. Being upfront and honest in the recruiting process. I thought that Braden Zenilovic was a very good quarterback for us this year. Sonny Bedina was a very good quarterback for us the year before. It was all conference, and they're both on the roster. And then playing a kid like Brendan Belont and Sam Florio for us in packages, like you said, they're starting in those packages. But we recruited a really good freshman this year, Brett Fuller from Port Jervis, who was the Section 9 Player of the Year. So telling him up front, like, hey, it's a crowded QB room. Only come here if you really want it. The education's financially for your family, the fit between you and I, the campus, all that stuff. But so first and foremost in the recruiting process, you and I doing this long enough to see a full cycle go through. I think that's first and foremost, you've got to get that done. And then when they're in your program, building a strong and close enough relationship with them to where you can have face-to-face, one-on-one, closed-door meetings with them. And I think our kids understand that, like, we coach in a positive light, we highlight the positives, and we coach through the negatives, and just making sure we appropriately organize our practices to get the kids the reps that they need to be having. And keeping them on their toes. Like on Tuesday, running back A may be the guy in the first group, and running back B may be the guy in the next group, and so on and so forth.
Now, in looking at it, and I talked with Coach Jackson about this from West Virginia. He was talking about his defensive line, how he likes to play a lot of guys too, and fit things to their different skill sets, and everybody's a little bit different. I do feel there is a challenge in doing these things where it certainly falls on the coach to figure out how does this guy uniquely fit in a package, right? And so what's your process for looking at that and saying, in this package, as an example, like this slot is going to be a little bit better for us because these are the primary routes we're going to run, and he's really good at these things.
Yeah, I think we have a big staff. All of our coaches are focused on being the head coach of their position group, and we coach all of our guys in Indy. Whether there's 4 guys in the room or there's 18 guys in the room, like, we're not sending them off to be scout team guys all the time. So, like, we're putting the time in now so we can see it 2 years from now, 3 years from now, 4 years from now. Because if we don't invest in these young men now, well, 2-3 years from now they haven't been developed because they've constantly been a scout guy or whatever the heck that it is. And I'm not downplaying the importance of scout team and getting the guys the reps that need the reps. I'm not saying it's a participation trophy thing, but I think it is. I think you need to have a big staff, and you need to have a focused mindset and set of eyes on what you're looking at in practice, right? We're not just out there going through the script. Like, we need to be present and be where our feet are and be able to evaluate these kids and what they could do well. And I think always viewing them in a positive lens instead of a negative lens. Like, we don't like talking in our meeting rooms, he's slow, he's short, he can't do this. Like, we only want to hear what they can do. Well, he can do this, and like our outside receivers, like, there's the guys who can run up the rails and catch a post for 50, and you could put it in front of them and you can put a lot of air under it. But then there's guys that we say you got to stripe them, and you got to put it on the stripe of the helmet and put it on them, and they'll make a tough catch for you. So KYP, know your personnel. Our guys hear that a lot too.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's fun and rewarding to be able to find those opportunities for them too. And I think when those guys know, like, and they maybe they don't get, their personnel doesn't get in a certain game, maybe didn't get into the situations you want. But they're working really hard now.
Yeah.
They're bought in, and it does become – the feeling is just different. I look at, the transition from where we were more of that, like I said, that vertical, here's our X, Y, and Z.
Good visual.
And that's it. Now we have all these other personnel groupings, and we would just add letters to it too, so that they knew, okay, hey, I'm the P, I'm the Patriot receiver. Like, I'm in for this guy in this package. Like, it means something.
You know what's funny too in your evaluation, like watching the kids play pickup basketball, or watching them do stuff before practice, just goof around and be kids. Exactly.
That's always where I'd find guys for trick plays too.
Yeah. Hey, can you do this? Just get them in the moment.
Right.
Try to shock them.
I had a tight end who threw he drifted back. One of those. Had some guys out in front of him, a little screen to him and throw it down the field. But it was because I saw him before practice throwing into the cans, right?
Yeah.
Playing with the quarterbacks.
Right.
So I'm like, hey, that kid's got some good accuracy. Right. Used it in a game, right? So I think you can look at it too. You do want those guys on the field, but there's things situationally that will dictate that. You know what? Maybe in this area, I have this guy who is super fast, can take the top off of the defense. Now we're in this space where we're in the red zone. Vertical space is gone. That bigger receiver might be better for me. Or I'm in a wildcat package. The guy who can maybe block a little bit better. We might not throw as much. So it does put more work on you as a coach. Yeah. But I feel like it gets more guys involved. The buy-in is good, and their skill sets are enhanced. Right. So the guy maybe who is a bigger, better blocker, there's a place for him.
Yeah, and they always feel like they're competing too. They always feel like they're competing too, because they know coach is always watching. Coach is going to find a reason or find a way for me to do something well here. So I may struggle with this, and not to get down on myself or self-conscious, but I know that I can do these things. Yeah. And coach is always positively reinforcing me.
Yeah, and I think when you look at it too in recruiting, it's a help when you're able to flip on that tape and they're watching and you start pointing out all the different guys that you have playing. Guys want to know that, hey, I'm gonna get a chance. That they're gonna look at everything I can do. It does help.
And effort's universal. That's a universal language. Like, doesn't matter what language you speak or where you're at. Like, everybody knows what that looks like and can relate with that. So the kids that are putting in effort, kids that are doing the right things on and off the field and in our program and buying in, if they have one thing that they could do, like, why not try to have 100 stars, and why not try to out-program people? We want our filmers to be competitive.
Yeah, definitely. Well, we're at the clinic here. I think these are unique situations. It's great to be back in person for one. I know really this is, other than AFCA, this is the first clinic I've been back to, and it's great to see just all the sharing that happens. And I think even more now, I see people more appreciative of this. Maybe we started to take it for granted. Maybe with the shutdown changed everything. But being in these situations and sharing, and you've done it. I've seen your clinics online. You're here sharing. What are your thoughts on that today, and just putting yourself out there and not worrying about, oh, geez, I'm giving too much away. Somebody's going to see this and use it against me.
Yeah, I think we were talking about advice that I would give. I think advice that I would give is come into these things, come to them as much as you can, and come in with an open mind. I think that's what's special and unique about our profession, is that people are willing to collaborate, introduce themselves, and share information and get everybody around them better. So, putting myself out there, I don't ever want to be labeled as complacent or content or like a squatter. I know I've been one place for a really long time, and I'm really passionate about it, and I treat our place like it's big time, because it is. It's big time where you make it. Yep. So for me to give information today, that information might be outdated tomorrow or a week from now or a month from now or a year from now, because just like everybody else is constantly learning from the people around them, so am I. Yeah. And it's important to surround yourself with people that you can learn from, and in environments like this, you certainly have that. And we're in an era nowadays where you can teach yourself a lot of things. There's a lot of resources and outlets out there, and digital media for us. And I think coming to a place like this and being able to troubleshoot with the person teaching you that material. And I just heard Coach Salem in there, who's got 31 years of experience, and he's using an overhead projector and talking about things from 1991, and that's stuff that you don't get. Don't get. That's unique to come to these things.
And ultimately, with all this information, no matter what you learn, you still have to assimilate that into what you do.
Yes.
Right? It's not a,
well said.
I say it all the time, coaching is not a copy-paste function, right? What somebody else does, you may look at that, but it's going to fit different with everything else that you have,
yes.
right? And how you coach it and everything. So there's still, even though people are looking at it, like, there's still a reason and a way that fits. You don't always give that stuff away too. I mean, we're not talking end to end on things you're sharing. Just a specific idea that could help somebody.
No, and you said it very well. It's like absorb what applies, right? And like try to make it fit into our system. And I tell our young guys that all the time. But like, they need to feel open to come to me with ideas that I'm not always going to shoot down. I tell our guys, I'll never say no. It doesn't mean it's a yes, but I'll never say no.
Right.
So I'll hear them all the way through, and we'll try to find ways to assimilate it to what we have going on.
Yeah, definitely. We share some great stuff here today in a lot of different aspects, but when you look at everything you do as a coach, what's the one thing you'd say that you do that gives your guys the winning edge?
I think that we are elite at building relationships, and I think that that's very hard to talk about. Like it's hard to put on a clinic PowerPoint slide or talk about on a video or through a microphone. It can't be replicated, so it's just stuff that you have to go in and day out and do, and spend the time with your guys, and that's our most valuable resource as people, right? Is our time. So, like you said, going down to practice 30 minutes early just to see the guys throw the ball in the can and be goofballs and be kids, like. You need to make yourself available to your kids and feed the positivity into them. Like, you're the thermometer in that room, and it could be hot or cold based on what you're doing that day. So I think that makes us unique, that our kids, and for the most part, I'm sure that there's outliers everywhere, but for the most part, I think our kids love being at Utica and love playing for us and love building relationships with us, whether it's 3 wins or 10 wins. Like, we go about our business the same exact way. And then find those opportunities to play our guys, whether it's 3 QBs or 3 tight ends, like being close with your defensive coordinator was really good advice that I got from Coach O'Mation last year when he was helping us clinic. Like, my DC and I, Coach McClellan, he does a great job. I'm like, hey, what do you hate? He's like, 3 tight ends, mobile QBs, fib, like, unbalanced. Like, you don't like it? We're doing it. We're putting it in.
Exactly. Well, Coach, great stuff, and I appreciate you taking the time. What would be the best way for our listeners to connect with you?
Yeah, so you guys can find me on Twitter. That's probably the best way, at Coach Gerbino, Gerbino. And then anybody who has my personal line, reach out.
Hey, it's great to sit down with you, meet you here. Like I said, I had seen you clinic online, but to be able to sit down and talk some ball has been great. Thank you.
Appreciate it, Coach. Thank you.